High in the boreal forests, a frozen carcass lies half buried beneath wind-packed snow. Most predators would struggle to make use of it, but not this one. A stocky, dark shape emerges from the tree line, moving with a purposeful, rolling gait. The Wolverine. With powerful jaws and a confidence out of all proportion to its size, it tears into the hide as if it were nothing but wet canvas. It feeds quickly, efficiently, and entirely alone. But what exactly is a Wolverine? How did this elusive predator evolve to occupy its place among the mustelids? Even in regions it still roams, many people will go their whole lives without seeing one. It holds an almost mythic status, a creature perfectly adapted to some of the harshest environments on Earth, whose evolutionary story winds back through the diverse and complex mustelid family. If you'd like to learn more, check out the document in the description with research papers and image credits. To understand where the Wolverine fits, we need to look at its wider family, the mustelids. This is the most diverse group of carnivorans alive today, with more than 60 species spread across almost every continent. Mustelids come in many shapes and sizes, from tiny weasels hunting rodents through tunnels, to otters slipping through rivers and kelp forests, to badgers reshaping soil with powerful forelimbs, or to martens racing through the treetops. Despite their variety, they share common traits: long, flexible bodies, well-developed anal scent glands, and a generally carnivorous diet. They are remarkably adaptable, occupying deserts, wetlands, tropical forests, alpine regions, and everything in between. Mustelids are, above all, an evolutionary family built on versatility. Within this broad family, the Wolverine belongs to a much narrower lineage, the subfamily Guloninae. This group provides the evolutionary context for the traits that make the Wolverine unique. Guloninae contains 4 genera, and most of its members share a distinctive lifestyle: agile, semi-arboreal predators that live largely solitary, wide-ranging lives. They are mustelids built for climbing, navigating complex forest canopies, and exploiting resources across large territories. The martens are the largest genus here, with 8 species spread across Eurasia and North America. They are nimble, arboreal hunters that rely heavily on mature forests. Their diet is highly varied: small mammals, birds, insects, fruit, and carrion. And many species play key roles as seed dispersers in northern forests. For centuries, martens were valued primarily for their fur. In parts of Europe, intensive trapping pushed species like the sable to the brink of extinction, though conservation efforts and habitat recovery have allowed many populations to rebound. Once thought to be just a large marten, the fisher is now recognized as its own genus, Picanea. A powerful, ground-oriented predator, it ranges across North American forests. While capable of climbing, the fisher spends far more time on the forest floor than its marten relatives. It specializes in hunting snowshoe hares, rodents, and, famously, porcupines, using agility and persistence to avoid the quills. Like martens, fishers suffered severe declines due to trapping and habitat loss, but reintroduction programs have restored them to parts of their former range. The tyra is the only species of its genus, and one of the most behaviorally flexible mustelids. Found from Mexico to northern South America, it thrives in environments ranging from lowland forests to agricultural mosaics. Tyras are opportunistic omnivores. They chase mammals and birds through dense undergrowth, forage for fruits in the canopy, raid nests for eggs, dig for invertebrates, and boldly investigate human settlements when food is available. Their intelligence is well documented. In some areas, tyras cache unripe fruit and revisit it days later when it softens, a rare behavior among carnivorans. Any of these genera could make excellent videos on their own, but they are not the focus today. For that, we turn to the tyra's closest living relative, the Wolverine. The Wolverine, Gulo, is unlike anything else in its subfamily. Where martens, fishers, and tyras are live, agile climbers of dense forests, the Wolverine represents a very different evolutionary experiment. A mustelid built for endurance, scavenging, and survival in landscapes where resources are scarce and winter dominates. At first glance, Its proportions set it apart. Compact but powerfully built, Wolverines have broad heads, thick necks, and muscular shoulders, giving them a silhouette closer to a small bear than to their marten or tyro relatives. They are the largest terrestrial mustelids alive today, a hint at the strength and endurance that define their lifestyle. Even their gait, a heavy, bounding lope, signals an animal adapted for long-distance travel over snow rather than chasing prey through the canopy. Their range reflects this lifestyle. Wolverines occupy the cold northern latitudes of North America and Eurasia, from Canada and Alaska to Russia and Scandinavia, in boreal forests, subarctic tundra, and alpine zones where deep snow persists most of the year. These landscapes are vast and sparsely populated, which may explain why wolverines are rarely seen. A single adult can hold a home range of several hundred square kilometers, one of the largest relative to body size of any terrestrial carnivore. Understanding the wolverine begins with this duality, a creature shaped by scarcity but thriving through versatility, a carnivore that is both hunter and scavenger in some of the harshest environments on Earth. Wolverines belong to the genus Gulo, which derived from its closest living relatives, the tyras, several million years ago. While tyras remain small in semi-arboreal and tropical forests, wolverines evolved in the cold, seasonal landscapes of the northern hemisphere, adapting to long winters, deep snow, and highly variable food availability. Fossils show that Gulo was once more diverse, with species across Eurasia and North America, including Gulo minor and Gulo sudoris. Some may have been 20 to 30% heavier than today's wolverines, roughly the size of a small wolf. These relatives roamed open steppe and tundra, hunting or scavenging megafauna such as bison, reindeer, and muskox. As the Ice Age ended, these larger wolverines vanished along with the big prey they depended on, leaving the modern wolverine as the sole survivor, specialized for cold, low productivity habitats. Their evolutionary history is written in their bodies and behavior. Compact, muscular forms built for moving over snow, jaws strong enough to crush frozen bones, and a metabolism flexible enough to survive when prey is scarce. In many ways, the wolverine is a living relic of the Pleistocene, carrying forward adaptations that once let its ancestors thrive alongside some of the largest mammals the Northern Hemisphere has ever seen. Wolverines are small enough to remain agile, yet built with extraordinary strength and endurance. Their bodies reflect the demands of surviving across vast, snowy landscapes where food is unpredictable and the terrain is unforgiving. Compact but heavily muscled, they have broad shoulders, thick necks, and powerful limbs. Their low, stocky frame is built not only for raw force, but for endurance over long distances. Large, fur-covered paws act like snowshoes, distributing weight and providing traction, allowing wolverines to move efficiently through deep snow, climb, dig, and travel dozens of kilometers in a single night. Their skulls are robust, with broad snouts and massive jaw muscles, and their teeth are specialized for shearing and crushing frozen bones. In strength relative to size, a wolverine's bite is among the most powerful of any mustelid, enabling it to exploit food sources inaccessible to other carnivores during long northern winters. Dense, oily fur provides exceptional insulation against sub-zero temperatures, keeping the animal warm and dry while moving through wet snow or ice. Guard hairs further protect against abrasion during climbing, digging, or grappling with prey. Scent glands near the anus and on their hind feet leave chemical signals across their home range, conveying information about identity, sex, and reproductive status, helping avoid unnecessary encounters with rivals in a sparse landscape. Beyond their physical traits, wolverines possess remarkable endurance and energy efficiency. Their metabolism allows them to survive when prey is scarce, and seasonal fat accumulation buffers lean winter months. They can process both fresh prey and frozen carrion, maximizing resources in a harsh environment. Even their behavior is shaped by anatomy. Their climbing ability, though limited compared to martens, gives access to food caches or a quick escape from competitors. Combined with keen senses of smell and hearing, these traits make the wolverine an exceptionally effective hunter and scavenger in ecosystems where encounters with other animals are rare and unpredictable. Wolverines are opportunistic carnivores, and their diet reflects the challenges of life in northern, snowbound ecosystems. Much of what they consume comes from scavenging frozen carcasses left by wolves, lynxes, bears, or winter-killed ungulates. Their powerful jaws and crushing teeth let them break through thick hides and frozen flesh, accessing nutrients unavailable to most other predators. In this way, wolverines are among the few animals capable of turning harsh winters into manageable seasons of survival. Despite their reputation for scavenging, wolverines are also capable hunters. They take a wide variety of prey, from snowshoe hares and ground squirrels to ptarmigans and marmots. Occasionally, when encountering weakened or isolated ungulates, they can bring down animals far larger than themselves, though such events are rare. This mix of hunting and scavenging allows wolverines to remain flexible in landscapes where food is unpredictable and patchy. Seasonal shifts further define their feeding ecology. In winter, frozen carrion dominates their diet, while in spring and summer they rely more on small mammals, birds, eggs, and even fruit. This adaptability is supported not only by their physical strength, but also by a keen sense of smell, which enables them to detect carcasses buried under meters of snow or hidden beneath dense forest canopy. Wolverines also interact with other predators in complex ways. They may follow wolf or lynx tracks for days, scavenging from kills without direct confrontation. At the same time, their size, ferocity, and persistence mean they are rarely intimidated, and smaller carnivores often yield when a wolverine asserts itself. These interactions show a balance of caution and audacity, allowing them to exploit a niche largely avoided by other competitors. In short, a wolverine's feeding strategy is a careful blend of skill, patience, and opportunism. Its diet, both hunted and scavenged, underpins its ability to survive in extreme landscapes and its role in shaping northern ecosystems. For a species so adept at covering vast distances, wolverines take a very different approach to reproduction, one shaped by caution, timing, and the harsh limits of the subarctic environment. Mating occurs in summer, when food is relatively abundant and individuals range widely. But embryos do not implant immediately. Like many mustelids, wolverines use delayed implantation. After fertilization, development pauses for several months while the female assesses her body condition and the state of the landscape. Only when winter approaches, and if she has accumulated sufficient reserves, does her pregnancy resume. These reserves are crucial. A female must essentially predict whether she will have enough food to support herself and her litter through the harshest part of winter. Miscalculating can be catastrophic, which helps explain why wolverines have some of the lowest reproductive rates of any northern carnivore. When conditions allow, the female excavates a den beneath the snow, often sheltered by boulders or fallen timber. This subnivean space, the space beneath the snow, provides insulation and protection from predators, but also ties reproduction to snowpack, making wolverines vulnerable to warming climates. Kits are born tiny and helpless, entirely dependent on their mother for warmth and milk. Over the next few months, she guides them across her range, teaching them to navigate the patchwork of food resources that define her territory. Young wolverines disperse during their first year, often traveling tens or even hundreds of kilometers to find unoccupied habitat, an odyssey that mirrors the wide-ranging adults they will become. For an animal so well adapted to hardship, the wolverine now faces pressures that even its remarkable resilience may struggle to withstand. The most significant threat is environmental, the gradual shrinking of the cold, snowy landscapes that underpin its entire life history. Wolverines don't simply prefer deep snow, they depend on it. Snowpack provides the insulation needed for maternal dens, preserves winter carrion that sustains adults through lean times, and even stabilizes the crust of snow they move over, reducing the energy they spend traveling. As winters shorten and spring thaws arrive earlier, suitable denning habitat becomes patchy and unpredictable. In many regions, climate models predict that areas with consistently deep snow could shrink dramatically by the end of the century. These changes compound the natural challenges of being a low-density carnivore. Wolverines need vast territories, often hundreds of square kilometers, to find sufficient food. Anything that fragments that space, roads, human developments, or intensive recreation, risks isolating populations and cutting off dispersal routes. A single highway can become an unbridgeable gap for juveniles trying to establish new territories, not because they can't cross it, but because the traffic, noise, and lack of cover makes the attempt too dangerous. Human-wildlife conflict adds another layer of vulnerability. While wolverines rarely interact with people, they can be drawn to trap lines, bait stations, or livestock carcasses, placing them at risk of incidental capture or targeted control. In parts of their range, legal trapping continues, though increasingly under tighter quotas and monitoring. The good news is that wolverines have shown they can recolonize suitable habitats when given the chance. Conservation efforts across North America and Eurasia focus on maintaining connected landscapes, mitigating conflicts, and safeguarding key snow-rich regions. In some jurisdictions, the species is already recognized as threatened or of special concern, prompting more detailed monitoring and habitat protection. Wolverines are listed as least concerned by the IUCN, a promising sign after they were considered vulnerable and then near threatened in the 2000s. But ultimately, the fate of the wolverine is tied to the fate of cold climates. Protecting this species means preserving the deep snow ecosystems that shaped it, and even this most tenacious survivor cannot outrun the loss of its winter world. Despite their solitary, elusive nature, wolverines have cast a long shadow in human imagination. Many cultures developed stories about them long before biologists did, often blending sharp observation with a dose of exaggeration. One of the most persistent ideas is their reputation for gluttony. This theme appears across Europe and is even reflected in their scientific name, Gulo, with Gulo being Latin for glutton. This mistaken belief may have several origins. Continuing with language and etymology, European languages hint at an interesting genesis. For example, the Norwegian name Fjellfrost, meaning mountain cat, appears to have influenced the German Vielfraß, literally meaning devours much, an obvious link to their supposed gluttony. But the more compelling case is their observed behavior. Wolverines are opportunistic feeders, and when they find a large carcass in deep cold, they will gorge themselves, not out of greed, but as a survival strategy. They can store huge reserves of fat, which become crucial during long stretches without fresh prey. Early naturalists interpreted this as excess rather than adaptation. That misinterpretation fed into some of the strangest medieval accounts, particularly in Scandinavia. Writers described a creature called the Gulon, said to feast until it could no longer move, then squeeze itself between two trees to press out room for more food before starting the cycle again. It's a colourful tale, and clearly inspired by the wolverine's build and appetite, but not its biology. Still, the story spread widely across northern and central Europe, cementing the animal's association with insatiability. A different kind of legend emerged in Poland, known locally as the Pomornik, reported in news from Western Pomerania in 2004. Witnesses described livestock attacks and a beast about 1.5 meters tall, with eyes that seemed to glow blue. Headlines dubbed it a Polish chupacabra, an unknown predator stalking barns and pastures. A scrap of fur suggested the culprit might have been a wolverine, though scientific evidence is scant. Wolverines no longer live in Poland, but one could conceivably have wandered over from Russia. No wolverines are as large as the Pomornik was claimed to be, though the glowing eyes could be explained as eyeshine, a common effect in nocturnal animals, caused by a reflective layer in the eye. The name appears to derive from pomor, the Polish word for plague, a symbolic echo of the fear and death associated with the creature. Whether the Pomornik was a misidentified predator, a cryptid, or an expression of collective anxiety remains unclear, but the 2004 reports left a lasting mark on regional lore. Across the Arctic and subarctic, indigenous peoples held more grounded views, shaped by direct experience. Many First Nations and Inuit groups recognized the wolverine as tenacious, intelligent, and sometimes troublesome. A thief of traplines, a raider of caches, an animal that seems to think ahead. In some stories it appears as a trickster or transformer, using cleverness to escape danger or teach a moral lesson. These accounts don't exaggerate its abilities so much as translate them. The Wolverine genuinely is able to learn to open complex latches, dragging off traps, or slipping out of seemingly secure enclosures. These diverse traditions, from the grotesque Gulon to the elusive Pomornic to the Arctic trickster, all reflect the same underlying reality. The Wolverine is an animal shaped by harsh environments and long winters, and by its own remarkable adaptability. And because people encountered it only rarely, its reputation filled the gaps left by mystery. Myth stepped in where observation was lacking. Today, modern science dispels the more fanciful tales, but it hasn't diminished the Wolverine's mystique. If anything, the truth is compelling enough. An animal capable of travelling dozens of kilometres overnight, caching entire carcasses in snow vaults, and surviving in some of the most unforgiving landscapes on Earth. In the end, the Wolverine reminds us how life adapts to the world's harshest margins. It's a creature forged by cold, scarcity, and solitude, yet one that thrives through ingenuity, endurance, and a surprising versatility. From the shadowy folklore of the Gulon to its real-world role as a wide-ranging carnivore of the snowy north, the Wolverine is both myth and reality, shaped as much by human imagination as by evolutionary history. Its future, however, depends on whether the frozen landscapes that define it can endure. As those environments change, so too will the fate of this remarkable mustelid. I hope you enjoyed this journey into the world of Wolverines. If this video sparked your curiosity, don't let it stop here. Share it, talk about it, and keep learning. There's still so much to discover about the world's rare and remarkable species. And the more we understand, the better our chances of protecting them. Thanks for watching.